Fuller with Jason's Heart, COO here. I'm just going to type a quick message in the chat. So please ask any questions. Yeah, we'll definitely be watching that chat for everyone. So please throw some questions in there, and we will definitely address those. Again, this is our class on identifying shadow beliefs and saboteurs. So if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Watching the chat. Yep, so hopefully you can see the little chat feature. And obviously, if you're on here, you probably know jasonsheart.org is our site if you need to or like to check out any of the other classes we do. Please feel free to jump on there and take a peek. So I will wait just a few more minutes here before I share my screen and we get rocking and rolling. Hope everybody's having a great week. We had an awesome NABHO conference last week. That was a great opportunity to meet a lot of folks in the behavioral health industry. So we had a good time there and talking about our classes and some of the work we do. So this is a really fun class for me. I actually have two really awesome classes. This is one that I really love to do. And then I've got another personal financial hacks one that I've leaned a lot on my banking and finance background to share some of that knowledge with people. So check that one out too. I really love doing it. It's a ton of fun. So it's very, very helpful and impactful for daily life. Looks like we got about a minute to go. And at the end here too, I'll have all of my contact information, and I've got some other references and stuff that go along with this particular lesson. So I'll make sure I share all of that information with everyone. All right, we're getting close. We are getting close. And we had actually quite a few registrations on this one, so it was great to see. I'm glad people in the community are using this free resource to enhance themselves and their careers. So we love sharing our knowledge and getting some great information out there. So please, stay in touch with us. Use these free classes. That's what they're there for. So, all right, well, it is 10 a.m. sharp. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we can start lining out some of this information. So there's my screen. All right, I got myself popped up there, and I'm going to kind of leave it in this view a little bit so I can refer back. Sometimes I'll pop back on slides to recheck some of the things that we have discussed. So I'll kind of leave this view for a little bit. But again, just really quick, this is really about the Shadow Beliefs and Saboteurs course is really about transforming and empowering the individual. So we take a look here at how those types of negative inner voices, those shadow beliefs and saboteurs, how are you being impacted by them? What do you do, to be present and listen and figure out where those saboteurs are, what kind you have, and then some of the steps to help kind of identify that. But really, all we need is presence and listening and an open mind, and be willing to explore some new things to better yourself. And then I do use a couple texts I will refer to. One is the Cashman text. It's called Leadership from the Inside Out. It is a fantastic book full of great information. Absolutely a book that had a ton of impact on my career. And then I also use a lot of information out of the Coactive Coaching book. This is another amazing book. You also, when you get the book, you also get access to all of their coaching information and tools, worksheets. So it is an incredibly valuable course and text to own. I refer to this and the leadership from the inside out book all the time, constantly. So let's take a look here. Go check out number 2. So let's jump over there. So again, there's really just a couple key concepts we're going to talk about. Obviously, shadow beliefs and saboteurs. One is dependent, obviously, on the other. So we will go through and talk about those and what they mean. So a couple of the things I should say that I always help participants try to be able to do and accomplish from this class is to obviously identify your own shadow beliefs and then use that information to identify one or more of your own saboteurs or gremlins. And then we do a physical characterization, So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then how do we take that information when we understand those beliefs that we have and how that sort of masticizes itself in our daily life? And then how can we use those to bring forth our best self? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to work on that today. All right. So let's jump right in and talk about what is a shadow belief. Well, shadow beliefs are those manifestations of some hidden things, some unexplored things, possibly unresolved psychological dynamics that are going on in our beings. Generally, the shadow belief is cast or comes into our life when we don't want to deal with something. So some of the things you might hear, I hear these a lot. I have a lot of inner voices going on. We all do. Some of us are more present and better about listening for those, identifying them, and then obviously using some of these tools we're going to talk about to defeat them and win. But again, some of the things you might hear yourself saying or your inner dialogue is, talking about that you're never quite good enough. I'm going to fail. I have to work twice as hard to be valued. I don't want to do that because it's just going to fail or be terrible anyway. So that's those shadow beliefs. That's kind of that inner voice talking. So we have the belief, but then we've got that voice that's talking in our head that's reinforcing those things to our physical being. And then we also have that sort of runs parallel with the shadow beliefs. We have the conscious beliefs. And these are explicit, known beliefs we have. Usually it's very easy to articulate these. It can take a little effort, I suppose, to clarify and access them. But for the most part, they are accessible to us. It's really the shadow beliefs that are less so. And again, some of the examples of a conscious belief and sort of juxtaposition to that shadow belief is, things that you believe as a person that you can materialize, you can touch, taste, experience. I believe in treating people with respect. I fear trying new things. Hard work brings results. So these are all physical things that we know and that we can access pretty darn easily. So it's good to sort of understand the difference in what we're talking about here. So let's kind of talk about the shadow beliefs here. Let's go through, I call these forms that I use in class our interactive participant guide. But we'll go through here, take a look at some examples, look at them in action, and then understand how to bring those to light so we can deal with them. So in the interactive participant guide, we go through some various activities on lining out your shadow beliefs and ultimately your gremlins and saboteurs. So I will normally send those out when folks request some of those deeper activities. A lot of times in this class, we're going to talk about it, but we're going to do it at a very high level just due to the limitations of time and interaction. But definitely reach out. My contact information will be on here if you want access to some of these resources as far as coaching, any powerful questions, any of the topics that I talk about. I've got some great reference pages that I can send out and all of the activities that go with this. If you want to actually take a deep dive into this and do the work, I will no problem forward those to you. And I would encourage anyone who's willing to take that challenge on and do that work to do it. So, um, again, our shadow beliefs are just opinions that somehow we have developed loyal to. Of course, as human beings, we are not these beliefs. Um, so where do we get these opinions? There's when you start doing this work, you really start exploring your past and your upbringing and your kind of worldview and some of the experiences you have. Oftentimes, that is where our shadow beliefs come from. Either maybe it could be a parenting situation, could be a relationship, good, bad, or indifferent. There are things that, maybe over time we did something and we had a negative reaction. And so over time, we sort of form these shadow beliefs. It's sort of like action, reaction. We take an action, we have a reaction, and it isn't a good one. Generally, we can start assigning some negative shadow beliefs to that activity, which is then going to be driven by our little gremlins to no longer do those things because last time that didn't end well. So I don't want to do that again. Right. So it can be kind of like a fight or flight protection, that we protect ourselves by forming those beliefs, and then ultimately a defense mechanism, which is our gremlins and saboteurs. Because whoa, I failed once, I don't want to do that again, right? But what do we know about growth and development and change? Well, what we do know is generally change and learning and development happens right on the edge of uncomfortableness. So the second we get past where we're comfortable, where our skills are, our accomplishments, it's that moment we step just over that line is where things explode for us, where we learn, we develop, we grow, we change. All of those wonderful things happen. So you can see, based on where we know growth and change happens for human beings, it is at that very point where you cross that threshold that becomes difficult when we have shadow beliefs about ourselves and our world, self-limiting beliefs, and ultimately those become gremlins that try to manage our beliefs and our actions from that point. So again, all of this is so important because especially if you find difficulty transferring or crossing over that line to growth, to a growth mindset and development, this is a good tool and a good place to start, to get yourself over that finish line, get started on that really difficult work. So, yeah. So again, talking about those relationships with our shadow beliefs and saboteurs, um, and I think this is a great paragraph here. Our beliefs shape our actions. So again, talking about those deeply held beliefs we've had over time, those are going to shape whether we take that risk that we did last time. Well, I don't want to take my bike down that hill because last time I crashed. That might be a valuable one, but there are oftentimes many that are not at all valuable for us as human beings. So, but again, those beliefs that we have feed those saboteurs, which then starts to become the controlling element of all of this, and it limits us. So our saboteurs again become the mouthpiece for those deeply embedded beliefs. And this is why I talk a lot about why doing work on saboteurs and gremlins is extremely important. So, what is a saboteur? Well, once we have the shadow beliefs, we move into the actual saboteur. And that is the narrator in your head. That is the actual inner voice or critic that travels your whole life with you. It's the good and the bad. It's in your head on your shoulder telling you, don't do that, don't do that, you're gonna fail, it's gonna be terrible. No, no, don't do that. Um, so it likes to tell us who we are, how to be, and it loves to define and interpret your experiences for you. And this is why it can be such a negative, self limiting thing. And again, as you know, in our society, on average, by the time we're 18 years old, we have received over 165,000 negative messages and roughly only about 10,000 positive. So that is a lot. That is a lot of negativity. And that, again, this is just another reason that this work is incredibly important. So, but yes, again, we all have a shared experience here. We all have these saboteurs and negative voices. And I always say saboteurs. I throw this in because it is plural. And I don't know that in my work I've ever seen anyone with just one saboteur. It takes a little bit of work to find the first one and discover it for yourself, but it's almost never just one. Many times it's two, three, four, five. So, it isn't something like, hey, I found one, I'm good, everything's fine. It's actually not. That's the beginning of the work. And the more that you do to discover them, the easier it becomes to find them and discover them and root them out and then not let them win over you. So again, it is a plural term and approach to this, because yes, we all have multiple saboteurs in our life. So let's talk about the actual saboteur. So again, we talked about kind of those deeply held beliefs, the shadow beliefs that we form over time. As if you decide you want the exercises that I have, I will send them to you. Once you start doing that work, that is where that is the difficult part, to try to help understand where it came from, and then identifying them and beginning to bring them to a physical massization to deal with and address. So one of mine is Archie. And so after kind of some inner searching, um, for myself and going through the exercises that I can send out, um, I found one that was trying to overcompensate by doing too much. That's kind of where I ended up settling in. This overarching belief that I'm not good enough, so I have to do more and just keep my head down. And as long as I'm doing more than everyone else, I'll succeed. But that actually doesn't end up happening. So, and I do keep Archie, my guy. He stays right here on my desk. So there he is in real life. He sits right up here on my credenza. So for me, again, part of that work is going through and really exploring those shadow beliefs, what they mean, how they're limiting you. Then when you do that, you start to uncover the things that they say and the ways that they limit you. And then from there, that's why this is so important, because once you do that, and that's one other one we'll look at here too, but like with mine, this thing is not just in my head. It's not a belief or a false belief, whatever the case might be. It's no longer just a voice in here and in here. It's actually something now that I can deal with. And so this is why for me, creating the physical representation of your saboteur is such an important thing, because once you bring it into the real world, and this could be a drawing, could be a painting, this is clay with little googly eyes on there. You can make it really about whatever you want. But the main objective here is to try to bring all of these things out of the subconscious and make them conscious. Kind of like we talked about. Oh, if you go, let's jump back up here. Kind of the difference, the conscious beliefs. So we can or do have the ability to take those shadow beliefs and the subconscious beliefs and then bring those into conscious beliefs. So that's sort of what we're doing with this physical representation of our saboteur. And we're going from a subconscious mindset to a conscious mindset, so that when we do that work and we get to that point, it's a lot easier to recognize them when you hear them. Oh, hey, that's Archie. Oh, I know what's going on here. So there is just such a huge advantage to being able to do that work. It's incredibly important. And this step is a big part for me long term. Why this has been successful and has worked really well is because I've been able to bring that physical presence out, and I always have a reminder uh, around me. So one of the other ones, this is kind of a funny one. I enjoyed one of a gentleman that I had done some coaching with came up with this, and this one Griami was named after his boss at the time, who, if you've read the book, you'll know, but was a pretty big whirlwind in his daily life, just constantly swirling around, creating distractions, taking him and the team in bad directions at inappropriate times. And, it was, I think his, after some exploration on his part, came from some other things in his upbringing, with a slight family connection there, but he sort of saw those same things going on at work and being able to overachieve and not get enough stuff done, um, not feeling valued at his work. And that sort of began the conversation for him. And then from there, he started exploring further, realized that this was not something new, and that it had actually been going on for quite a bit of time. So yeah, he dug really, really deep and found some pretty cool stuff that he was able to bring to light, to bring to conscious, so that he could better deal with it and not let it control and impact his decisions and his success and his daily life at work and at home. So a lot of rewarding things come out of this. Okay, so identifying yours. A couple things I would say in doing this. Um, One, don't don't get too caught up in what others are going to think about you doing this process. I guess I would say it does seem easy for people to say, "Oh, that's not valuable. That's just soft skills. You don't need any of that. It's not going to help you." Don't let that get in your way from or prevent you from doing this work. Um, and I will comment about that here in a second. But in the process of identifying your saboteurs, just be willing and open minded, and take that step to start doing the work. Don't let others influence how you feel about this stuff, or whether or not you want to take that step and do the work. Um, it's very easy to let that get in the way. Um, but don't get frustrated if they're not immediately obvious. And I will say 1000%, this was anything but for me. It does take some work tapping into your personal introvert. So if you're like me and you're very extroverted, doing introversion or introspection, intrapersonal work and communication, it's incredibly difficult for me. So it is a lot of ideas and things going through my head. So I have to figure out a way. Usually for me, it's going for a bike ride or a hike somewhere out in nature, where I can quiet the ideas and the voices and the work and the craziness. Because I'm always doing that as an extrovert, so I have to be very diligent about calming and quieting that, so that I can focus on listening to the internal things that are going on and then do that work. So it took me weeks to just get to a point where I could quiet all of the distraction nonsense going on in my daily life and my head, so that I could actually start focusing on what was going on internally. Um, I will say, however, once I identified my first saboteur and brought it to fruition, obviously, into physical form, things started actually unfolding pretty quickly. I found two or three right out of the gate after the first one, of just self limiting beliefs, things that I had formed allegiance to over time. That are things that are obviously not me, but they are things that I gave enough merit and weight to mentally, in my subconscious that it was impacting me consciously and holding me back in a lot of ways. So, you know, trust the process, do what you need to do for you to get yourself in a have that introspective mindset where you start focusing on internally and what's going on for you personally. This is not about anyone else. It is just about you. Um, but I promise you, when you do the work and you get the first one, you'll be like, oh, wow, okay, what is going on here? So there's, um, there's some epiphanies that happen in this process. And one other thing, let me go back one here on this last paragraph here. One of the things I found is, again, the more of this work that I did and the more time I spent internally focusing on that, I just got better and better and better and more efficient at understanding and being conscious and present, both to my external environment, but my internal environment as well. If I can quiet down all of that, it's amazing what I could actually get done. And I believe without question, unequivocally, that I am way more efficient when I'm able to do that and get in that space. So, and then again, once you have that physical characterization, it's just a constant good reminder. Even if you just do one that way, I think it's cool if you want to have several, especially if they're really, really self-limiting. But even just having that one is just like right here on your credenza, like every time you come in your office, you see it, or on your desk. It's just such a great reminder that we're all human. We all have shadow beliefs. We all have things that hold us back. But the more you admit that and take ownership of it and do that work, the easier it gets, um, to overcome those challenges. So, okay, so a couple things I would say about this is, just remember when you're going through all of this. Again, I will repeat this: it is not easy. It is difficult. There's nothing more difficult than turning the magnifying glass around on yourself, because none of us want to admit that we have weaknesses or lack strength in some area, or we're not as good as we thought we were. But it's important to be honest with yourself and know where you are. Um, but really, those two takeaways is, I would say, you have control and you get to choose, which is quite the opposite of the role of shadow beliefs and saboteurs. They very much want to drive control and drive our experience and everything that we do. So that there is those shadow beliefs there's some powerful allegiances that we have created to those in our life. And if it's been 30 years of allegiances being built, be patient with yourself. You have control, you get to choose. So take your time, understand, you know, it's hard work. And, frankly, none of us like focusing on our own um, challenges and weaknesses and admitting that we have work to do, because we all do. So, one of the other things I touch base on here a lot as well, sorry, give me a second, is coaching. I am obviously a big fan of coaching. I mentioned the book Coactive Coaching. To me, it is probably one of the best coaching models out there. I personally like it because sort of the underlying benchmark of coactive coaching is that, the person that you're coaching is 100% complete in every way they need to be. So they have all of the strengths and skills needed to be successful in whatever they want to do. It's not about fixing or repairing or any of those things. And honestly, in my work in grad school, especially, we had to go through not only being coached but also coaching others. And one of the really cool things I found with coaching is it is a great way to uncover your saboteurs and shadow beliefs. Um, If you've never done coaching, I would highly encourage you to do it. I would also say, with regard to coaching, is it is absolutely not, it is not counseling. It is not mentoring. It is not fixing anyone that's broken. And that's why coactive coaching is important, because everyone is where they need to be, period. Okay. They are who they are. They have all the skills, everything they need to be successful. Right. So with a coach, again, you're not counseling, you're not a psychologist, you're not a mentor, you're not a trainer, whatever the case might be. So it really is, a mentor is not, they're teaching their mentee something. Or if you're counseling, you may be trying to undo a thought process or a belief system similar to what we are talking about. However, with a coach, it's like a facilitator is probably the best word. So they are there to ask you powerful questions. They are there to help you challenge your own beliefs. The coach is not necessarily going to challenge your beliefs, but they're going to get you to challenge your beliefs, if that makes sense. It's kind of that coaching role. They ask the powerful questions. They help keep accountability, help redirect when necessary. They're trying to provide you tools and ways to discover what needs to happen for yourself. And that is the role of a coach. Again, goals, accountability, just keeping you on the right path, keeping you in your lane, and just driving you to discover and answer the things that you need to for yourself so that you can grow. And hopefully uncover some things. Maybe it's shadow beliefs, maybe it's other things. But it is a very powerful role. And coaching for me was a big help in my discovery process for Gremlins and Saboteurs, and what that looked like for me, exploring some of those shadow beliefs, those deeply held shadow beliefs over the years, and where they came from and why they might be there. But coaching, having a great coach is a good way to start to learn that process and get really good at it so that you can start doing that self-discovery on your own. But yeah, please don't ever shy away from coaching. It is such a valuable tool. And frankly, in the business world, we don't do anywhere near enough of it, which is also what I'd like to briefly talk about. A great book that I read was by an individual that was formerly with Gallup, but I'm sure you've heard of him, Marcus Buckingham, tremendous individual. I love the things that he talks about. He also obviously is an advocate for coaching, and one of the things that he talks about with organizations that embrace coaching, couple items that you can expect. And again, I do believe coaching goes in hand with emotional intelligence, because people high in emotional intelligence are very good at self-awareness and introspection, understanding how they're being perceived by themselves, by others, in the environment. And coaching is a big part of that. So, again, people that go through this process who are highly emotional intelligent are generally maybe not more successful at it, but maybe the process happens a little bit quicker for them because they're so used to that introspection and taking that role for themselves. But this is where a coaching is a big part of identifying saboteurs and gremlins. And sometimes you just need a little kickstart, to get yourself going. But when you do things like introspection and coaching, you have more engaged employees by far. They are more empowered because they've done that self-work. Generally, they're more effective and efficient employees because they've learned to deal with those inner voices and those holdbacks, so they can focus on important things rather than false beliefs about themselves and others and their environment. Their communication improves, and then of course, when you get everybody kind of working in the same direction, but also in a positive direction, like that is a huge momentum within your organization. And one other thing I would talk about too is the three phases of learning, or what Buckingham calls the promises of phase three. So as organizations, we spend about 10% of our resources on pre-session work. So that is like leadership team or a department figuring out, what do we need to do? What do we need our team to do? What do we want our organization to do? How do we want to teach and grow our organization? So that's 10% is figuring out what that looks like and where everyone needs to be. Then we spend a huge amount, 85% of our resources, on learning and events, right? And this is the fun part. This is the part I always call about stuff. Like, organizations love to have their people do stuff. Oftentimes there is not nearly the amount of intention and planning that go into that stuff. It's like you go to this symposium or conference, and then you come back and you got this great 3-ring binder full of stuff that's never going to happen in your daily whirlwind, and it goes right into the filing cabinet and never to be looked at again. So we spend a copious amount of our time doing stuff, doing rather than being. And you will hear me say that a lot. And then the follow-up and coaching. What do we do after we've decided what our teams and our organization needs to do? And when we spend 85% of our time doing stuff, what do we do at the end? Well, not much, actually. We spend about 5% of our time, on any kind of follow-up and coaching, which also would include implementation of these things that we do. So here's the problem. Here's the rub. 50% of the value comes from phase three. We know that. But we only invest 5% in doing that. I mean, think of it, if you had a business, would you put 5% of your effort into an area of your business that makes half your revenue? No, you probably wouldn't. You would probably put way more than that, if not half to 3/4 of your resources. Okay. So what Marcus Buckingham discovered was that learning followed up with coaching, organizations that do that really well are 73% more successful and profitable than their counterparts. So that's why I talk about this part a lot, because all of this has to do with gremlins and saboteurs and being intentional, being present, asking powerful questions, being highly emotional, intelligent, and doing a good job coaching, because we know the majority of the value out of doing things like this as a team or as an organization. We know that marriage point where that all hits on the same cylinder is because of coaching. It's a big way. It's what holds us accountable. When we've decided what we want to do, we go and do it. Now we come back and we implement. So instead of just putting the binder in the 3-ring binder in the circle file, we actually take the time to implement it. This becomes problematic because it does take time for an organization to allow their people to digest what they've heard at the event and figure out how it makes sense in their organization or in your organization or culture, and then allowing that individual and your teams to actually implement it at the ground level, get it in there, get it in the organization. So, I think it takes more time on the front in the pre-session work to figure out what exactly your organization needs and what do the individuals in your organization need. So if you do a good job at figuring out what that is and what that looks like, and then make sure you have a plan. Like, don't just go do it. Don't just go do the stuff. Figure out what you're going to do with it when you're done doing it, whatever it is. So, whether it's work on this module, gremlins and saboteurs, and helping your employees and teams be more present and more introspective as individuals, which is obviously going to empower them, engage them, their teams. They'll be more effective and efficient. You'll have better communication. So give them time, make a plan, think about intentionally, what do you want to do and what are you going to do with it when you're finished? And this is the point again that Marcus Buckingham always makes. Have a plan. So in kind of tying some of this all together here, the relationship between the shadow beliefs and saboteurs. That relationship is that shadow belief is a long held, deeply held belief that we've had over time. Sometimes they're recent, sometimes they're older. Generally, they come from a much older place that has been around a while. And the relationship is that the gremlin is limiting you through those beliefs. So we have those beliefs in our subconscious. They sort of materialize to our conscious through a gremlin or saboteur. And that is the thing that's gnawing at you all the time. And that is the thing that's physically holding you back from whatever it is you're trying to do. So one thing I like to mention here too is, how does being present help grapple with saboteurs? Well, again, like I talked about, as someone who's an extrovert, and getting out of that space and into more of an introspective place is important, because it helps me quiet everything, quiet the busyness of the day, and actually listen to what's going on internally, and then figuring out what that is and making a physical representation of it. So if you're very present and listening to your inner dialogue, that is going to be incredibly helpful for you in the discovery process here. The benefits honestly are limitless by using this process and taming what we call taming those gremlins. You're no longer being limited by a false sense of beliefs that you might have, because you don't have them. It's something that you've assigned allegiance to erroneously. It is not who you are, and you can fight it. So there are so many good benefits from being more present and being intentional in your life and setting better goals and being more successful and having better relationships, business and personal. So there are a ton of benefits. And then asking yourself the question, after you do this work, I'll tell you what's incredible is when you look back and you go, oh my gosh, these things have really been limiting me, probably for longer than you'd like to admit. I know that was the case for me. So, and additional benefits are, there's a health and stress benefit to this. It is really going to be help you be more successful in your life altogether, at every level. So it is good work to do. And then again, so kind of continuing that journey, my information's right here at the left. So if you can, send me an email. I will send you these worksheets. The longer version of this that we do with our apprentices in our Jason Hart program, they actually do go through and do a lot more of this work than what we're talking about here. If you email me, I will send you these modules that you can work on your own at home and such. Get that book, Leadership from the Inside Out, or the Coactive Coaching. They will both be hugely helpful for you in your business and personal life. And if you do decide to go in here and start working on this and do the exercises that I send out, I would love to hear from you. As far as what saboteurs you discovered for yourself, and send me a picture. I love including that stuff as I enhance my presentation in this class specifically. I love sharing those examples. And I think it's good for others to see that too, that others are out there doing the work and seeing the successes they've had. And I just think it's powerful when other people do it as well. So again, check out over to the left here, jasonshart.org. Our classes are always listed on there. Again, my information is right here to the left as well. And you can always find us at Jason's Heart 402 on social media. But yeah, reach out. I will, obviously, we continue doing these various classes every month. So would love to see some more folks on here enjoying this and using it. But again, hit me up with questions. jasonsheart.org. Come visit us on the site and get registered for some more classes. We would love to, we would absolutely love to see you all join us for some more classes and continue doing the great work in our community and for yourself. And we'll continue to show up here and do so. So I don't think we have any questions at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and call this lesson complete, but I look forward to chatting with everyone in the next one. And again, go become one of the people helping people at jasonsheart.org. Thanks everyone for your time, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.